Welcome back. All right, so anytime that I talk about contending teams, there will be what about, which like last time, right? Well, what about these teams? Because, a week later, things change. So I've got 13 teams on the board this time. 13. And the cutoff I used is points percentage of 600 and higher. And so the 13th best point percentage in the league is 615. That's high. And it's interesting, too, because last year we saw some really gaudy records. And I said, when we go back to an 82-game schedule, we shouldn't see those gaudy records. And yet, here we are, where you've got a 700 points percentage for 5 teams in the NHL. 700 or higher, which is, again, it seems really high. So the best points percentage in the league is Florida at 736. Now, what's interesting to me for them is they've got 18 regulation wins. They're 19-3-0 at home, and they're 5-4-5 away from home. So they're excellent at home. They're not as good away from home as they are at home. And it is this interesting difference between them and some of the other teams on the board. They're not the only team that doesn't have a great road record, but it's there. And their special teams are middling, which you wouldn't expect with Florida either with the record they have currently. So power play is 18th overall, and when you look at the amount of stars they have and the amount of firepower they have, it's surprising it's 18th. Their penalty kill is 14th. I'm also surprised that it's that low. Their goals for per game, second in the National Hockey League. They can score. They can score in bunches. But their goals against per game is 17th. And this has been a combination of some iffy goaltending and some iffy defense. And you can decide whether it's the defense or the goaltending that's causing them to be 17th in the league of 32 teams. The interesting thing to me with Florida is the fact they haven't won a round since 1996. So this year, absolutely the best year Florida, I think, has ever had as a team. But it's 26 years since they last got out of the first round. That's an issue. And so, are they a contender? Absolutely. But I do wonder, if they end up playing, let's say they play Tampa Bay in the first round. Let's just say that Florida and Tampa end up being second and third. Let's just say Toronto ends up being first. I know it's not likely to happen, but can Florida beat Tampa is a question we'll likely have to face either in round 1 or if they get out of round 1 in round 2. And if Florida meets up with Toronto in the first round, well, I'll get my popcorn ready because that should be a fun series between two teams that have not won a round in some time. The last time I can remember seeing a battle between two teams that haven't won a first round in a long time was actually between Florida and the Islanders. And the Islanders, of course, won that. Carolina, their points percentage is right there with Florida. They're .001 off. 735 is their points percentage. They have 22 regulation wins. Keep in mind the regulation wins are the first tiebreaker for a playoff spot. So with 22, that's the highest number on the board. Just by 1 over the New York Rangers. So 22 regulation wins for Carolina. At home, they're 11-4-1. On the road, they're 13-4-1. So whether they're at home or they're on the road, Carolina's pretty good. Their power play, 8th in the league. Their penalty kill is first. Their penalty kill has been excellent this year. It's above 90% currently. Goals for per game, they are 6th. Goals against per game, they are first in the National Hockey League. So for Carolina, I think they've shown that, yes, they're absolutely contenders. The 2006 Stanley Cup being their one and only Stanley Cup to this point. Does that change in 2022? It could. Absolutely could. This is a team that's known to go on nice long playoff runs or just miss the playoffs. But that's changed in recent years. And now they're in the playoffs every year, and it's a matter of when is that cup run going to happen? Is this the year? I think there's a lot of encouraging signs for Carolina. And again, they're top 10 in every category, right? And excellent away from home or at home. It doesn't matter. They're very good at both. Arguably better on the road than at home, right? Colorado, 712 is their points percentage currently. Regulation wins, they have 19. At home, they're 14-2-1, so they're excellent at home as well. On the road, 8-6-2, so they've won 8 out of 16 away from home. Their power play is 7th in the National Hockey League. I'm surprised it's not higher, to be honest. Their penalty kill is 30th. They're not keeping the puck out of the net often enough. This is a team that should be able to keep the puck out of the net, should have better numbers than they do. Their goals for per game is a ridiculous first, and I say ridiculous because they are far and away the first place team when it comes to goals for per game. Goals against per game, they are 22nd. And to really and truly be a cup contender, I think that we sometimes make it so the defense sounds more important than it is. I remember reading an article, I think it was last year, which showed that teams that generally have the better goal scoring are the ones that win playoff rounds more often than the teams that are really good defensively. But Colorado doesn't want to be 22nd in goals against. 2001, their most recent Stanley Cup, it has been over 20 years for Colorado. And so, yeah, they're overdue. They're absolutely overdue. And with McKinnon, Rontanen, and Landeskog with that line, with Makar on the point, there's no reason this team shouldn't win a Stanley Cup. But the question I have with them is Darcy Kemper a Stanley Cup winning goaltender? If he's not, is Pavel Francouz a Stanley Cup winning goaltender? If he's not, what does Joe Sakic do? Right? So that's the question I have when it comes to Colorado. And so their 7-12 points percentage is the best in the West. But, right? So we'll see, whether or not they can keep that points percentage up and whether or not their goals against gets better. Tampa, 705 is their points percentage. They've got 17 regulation wins out of their 25 wins overall. They are 13-4-3 at home. They're 12-5-2 on the road, so they're very good on the road as well as they are at home. Their power play and penalty kill are both ranked 15th, surprisingly mediocre. And for Tampa, you've got to think with Kucherov back, the power play's got to start getting better. I would think top 10 at the very least, right? Goals for per game, they are 7th in the NHL. Goals against, they are surprisingly 13th in goals against per game. I would have expected them to be top 10, but they're not. And so we'll see whether or not that number starts getting better as we get into the second half of the season. I would think it does. And of course, these are the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. So yeah, Tampa, contender, yes. This just has to be a yes. Toronto, they have a 700 points percentage. 19 regulation wins. At home, they're 14-4-1. On the road, they're 9-5-2. So they've won 9 out of 16 away from home. It has been an up and down road trip for them this week. But overall, their numbers are still pretty good. Their power play is 3rd in the NHL, which kind of surprises me because it's very hot and cold. Their penalty kill is 8th. So they're top 10 in both of those figures, and they're 9th in goals for per game, as well as 3rd in goals against per game. All of these numbers would tell you that Toronto is a contender. And if this was any other logo here, I think it would get a lot more attention and people would take it more seriously. But with 1967 being the last time they won a cup, with 2004 being the last year that they won a round, all of these numbers likely don't mean a whole lot to people because they haven't won a round in the playoffs since 2004. That's 18 years. And so that if born in 2004, you're graduating high school in 2022, and you could go your whole life without having seen Toronto win a single round. So Toronto's at the very least got to win a round this year, but I've said that for the last 2 years. So I don't know. I don't know what the plan is if this doesn't work out. Like if they lose in the first round again, something has to get torn down, doesn't it? So yeah. But again, it's that weird thing where all of their numbers are good. And here we are talking about the first round follies of the Toronto Maple Leafs. New York Rangers, 684 points percentage. Regulation wins, they have 21, so they're second on the board in regulation wins. At home, they're 10-3-2. Away from home, they're 14-7-2. So very good road record, solid home record, and they've already played 23 games on the road and only 15 at home. So the New York Rangers could absolutely go on a bit of a run here. Their power play is 10th in the National Hockey League. Their penalty kill is 3rd. They're very good. Shesterkin does steal them games, but they're still pretty good. The interesting thing is their goals for per game is only 20th, and you would think it would be higher. At least I would think it would be higher. Goals against per game, that's 2nd in the National Hockey League. So Carolina and the Rangers are the top 2 teams in the league at keeping the puck out of their net. Carolina, it's viewed as being their defense and their overall commitment to defense. And the Rangers, it's basically the Shesterkin show, right? Their defense is very good, but Igor Shesterkin's been fantastic this year. Now, to round out this part of the board, at 667 for their points percentage is the Minnesota Wild. They've only got 14 regulation wins out of their 21 victories, right? So that's kind of an odd thing right there. But on the road, they're 10-7-1. At home, they're 11-3-1. So they're good on the road. They're good at home. And then you get into the mediocre special teams. Their power play, 23rd. Last year, their power play was 31st in the league for a while. I'm pretty sure it was. It was bad. Then it went on a run. And then it was bad again. So I guess they're due to go on a run and get those numbers, into at least the top 15. Their penalty kill is 17th overall. So it is odd that their percentages are so good. Their goals for per game is 3rd. That's kind of surprising that Minnesota's the 3rd highest scoring team in the league per game. Their goals against per game is 19th. So Minnesota, as well as Colorado, they are outside the top 16 when it comes to goals against. And you have to think they'll be looking to address that when we get closer to the deadline. And again, is it the goaltending? Is it the defense? Is there something else involved that's causing that part of their game to suffer? And that's where it's up to a general manager to make the decision on how to fix it. So we go over to this column and you've got St. Louis, right? The Blues have a 662 points percentage. Regulation wins. They have 19 out of their 22 games. So a lot of regulation wins there. At home, they're 15-3-2. And on the road, they're 7-7-3. So for St. Louis, their road record's not great. That is the one thing to keep an eye on because they've had 20 games at home and 17 on the road so far. So they've got a few extra extra road games in the remaining schedule above what they have with their home games. Power play, though, they're 2nd. Penalty kill, they're 5th in the National Hockey League. Goals for per game, they are 5th in goals for per game. Goals against per game, they are 8th. And, of course, they were the 2019 Stanley Cup champions. So that's going to put them, in the eyes of many, ahead of Minnesota, who most recently were conference finalists in 2003. And, of course, for the Rangers, you have the 1994 Stanley Cup. And that's where things are interesting because if you're a Rangers fan, you may look at the numbers and say, we are a contender. This is, this could be a big year. But to others, they may look and go, well, yeah, but St. Louis, while they're below them in points percentage, they have a recent Stanley Cup to their name. So that might make them more likely to win it than, say, the Rangers. And that's where it gets really tough to really name who the true contenders are. Washington, 662 points percentage overall. The regulation wins, they have 18. At home, they're 10-4-5, and away from home, they're 10-4-4. Washington is an interesting team on this board. They've won 20 games, 18 of them in regulation. They've lost 8 in regulation. They've lost 9 in extra time, meaning they've won 20 out of 37 games. So it's interesting that their points percentage is 662, and it's kind of the ultimate example right now in the NHL of how the overtime and shootout loss point can really make a huge difference in the standings because Washington has 9 extra points by losing in overtime or shootouts. Now, when you look at the numbers, of course, they're the 2018 Stanley Cup champions. Can't take that away from them. Their power play, though, is 29th in the NHL, and it's a power play that's had Ovechkin all year. And I think they're relying a lot on Ovechkin. I think they might be overly relying on Ovechkin. Their penalty kill is 11th, which is decent. Their goals for per game is 8th. So while the power play has not been clicking, they are scoring goals. Goals against per game, they are 12th in the NHL. There's nothing really elite with Washington's numbers at this point. However, it's the Washington Capitals, ex-Alex Ovechkin. People will expect a lot out of them in the playoffs. At least they should, and I think they will. The interesting thing, too, is if you look at this board, all 8 teams that are currently in the playoffs in the East are on this board. And there's 5 from the West. So if you want to use this board as an argument for the East being stronger than the West, I don't have an answer. I think that's probably the case. You're going to see some very good teams in the East get knocked out in the first round, and likely some very upset fan bases looking over at the West and seeing who makes it to the second round in the West and saying, our team could have beat them. Now, at 658 for points percentage is Nashville. They have 18 regulation wins. At home, they're 11-6. Away from home, they're 13-6-2. Very good away from home. I would argue better away from home than they are at home. Their power play is 4th in the NHL. That's unusual. Their penalty kill is 9th. Their special teams have been excellent. Again, that's unusual for Nashville. Their goals for per game is 14th, so that's around middle of the pack. Goals against per game is 9th. So overall, pretty good, pretty solid. And yes, the UC Saros show is what we could term the last month for Nashville. And yet there's some good scoring there too. They've got an excellent blue line. They were Stanley Cup finalists in 2017. They might be due for another run. They absolutely could be due for another run. So we'll see if that in fact takes place. And again, it might be easier in the West than it is in the East. And so that's a conversation I would imagine we'll be having once we get to playoff time and beyond. Pittsburgh, 653 points percentage. They have 18 regulation wins. At home, 10-5-2. Away from home, 11-5-3. So even though they've lost, 2 of their last 3 games, their record overall is still very, very good. Their points percentage is very, very good. 2016, 2017, of course, they won the Stanley Cups for those 2 years. And so they're going to be seen as contenders at this stage where Malkin's just returned. And at the perfect time, because their power play is 22nd in the NHL. It's been bad. So if Malkin can get that going, that'd be awesome. Their penalty kill is 2nd overall in the NHL. They don't take very many penalties, and they kill them off very, very well. And the fact that their penalty kill is that good, if we get a Pittsburgh-Carolina matchup, you may not see any power play goals in that series. So their goals for per game is 11th. And again, Malkin's returned. That could actually go up. Goals against per game is 5th because Jari's fantastic. So it is remarkable to see how well Pittsburgh's done this year. You cannot count Pittsburgh out. People try every year, and they manage to prove people wrong every year. So this year, so far, they've done it again. Boston, a team that is red hot right now. 647 is their points percentage. And their regulation wins, they have 19. Of course, they won the 2011 Stanley Cup. They've been back to the finals in 2013 as well as 2019 and not been able to get over the hump since that 2011 victory. Can they do it this year? I have my doubts. I don't think so. But anyways, they're 9th in power play. They're 7th in their penalty killing. And so the overall numbers are very good. Goals for per game, they're 13th there. I'm kind of surprised they're not a little bit higher, to be honest. Their goals against per game is 4th. So, again, it's that weirdness of they're bringing Tuukka Rask back, which is great, but I don't think goals against have been a problem for the team this year. Who knows? Maybe having Rask in net means they'll start scoring more goals more regularly. There is definitely an argument to be made that some goaltenders get better run support than others. So, maybe Tuukka Rask being back in net will get everybody scoring. If the depth scoring shows up, then yes, in my eyes, they're a contender. But at this stage, and again, all 8 teams in the East are on this board, I don't see Boston getting past Tampa. I don't see Boston, if they ended up in a series against Carolina, I don't see them beating Carolina again. I think Carolina is due for a win over Boston if that's a matchup, so we'll see. And then the last team on the board, Vegas. 615 is their points percentage. The regulation wins 19. Vegas might be the most interesting team on the board. 2018 Stanley Cup Finals, that's their first year, raises the bar insanely high. So since then, it's kind of been a disappointment for Vegas, right? 615 is a very good points percentage, but it is 13th on this board. There's 13 altogether. At home, they're 12-9-2. Away from home, they are 11-5. They're better on the road than they are at home. I don't know that that's happened with Vegas before. Vegas needs to make the Fortress an intimidating place to play again. I don't know that it has been this year, and I'm not sure how you do that other than, having Stone and Pacioretty healthy, maybe when Eichel comes back, just that kind of thing. But their power play is 14th. It started the season miserably. It's gotten better since then, but their penalty kill is still 23rd. So they're going to have to improve those numbers. Their goals for per game, they are 4th in the NHL in goals scored. And I think a lot of those are going to be in the third period. They just seem to be very good in the third period, especially with comebacks. While St. Louis is very good with comebacks, Vegas has been very good with them as well. Goals against per game, they're 18th. So that's the question when it comes to Vegas too, and maybe a question for any of these teams. Which teams on this board do you look at and say they have a goaltender that can win them a Stanley Cup? They have a goaltender that can go on a Bennington run. They have a goaltender who can be like a Vasilevsky. They have a goaltender who can be that guy and elevate his game, right? And so I know that Robin Lehner is kind of a divisive figure just in hockey in general, but even among Vegas fans, there's that division. Some really, really like Lehner, and some really, really wish that Fleury was still there. And I don't know that there's anything that's happened this year to change any opinions on that. I don't think Lehner's numbers have been good enough to make anybody forget about Fleury, but I don't think his win-loss record is bad enough for people to say, well, he sucks and he should go. So yeah, we'll see. One thing too that I find interesting is, so with points percentage, that would mean that Florida's on pace to win the President's Trophy, right? President's Trophy since 2013. 2013, of course, Chicago won the President's Trophy and won the Cup. That was a lockout shortened year. 2014, Boston wins it. 2015, the Rangers win it. 2016 and 2017, Washington won it. 2018, Nashville wins it. 2019, Tampa wins it. 2020, Boston wins it. 2021, Colorado won it. So when we look at this, 2017, of course, Washington wins it. They win the Cup in 2018. 2019, Tampa wins it. They won the Stanley Cup in 2020 and 2021. So does that mean that Colorado has a real chance the year after they won the President's Trophy? Yeah, maybe. The problem is they're still in the hunt for this year's President's Trophy. So if they get it, we know, in general, President's Trophy doesn't mean you're going to win a Stanley Cup. The one thing I've always said with that, though, too, is that there is a lot of parity in the league anyways. So the difference between Florida here and Minnesota down here, I don't think it's as a big a difference as it would have been in, say, the 80s between a first-place team and 7th. I think there are a lot of excellent teams. And that's why, if you're a fan of any of these teams, you can make an argument for any of them winning a Stanley Cup this year. You can also make an argument for them not winning a Stanley Cup this year. And that's the fun of it. So there you go. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.